When I was 5 years old, my family of four, which included my father, mother, me, and my 2-year-old younger brother, moved into government-reserved quarters in Plateau State, a region in the north-central part of Nigeria. My father had recently been employed by the state government, and this new house marked the beginning of a significant chapter for us. The area was eerily desolate. Out of over 250 buildings in the government-reserved quarters, only 3 were occupied by human inhabitants, including ours. The rest were unfinished, abandoned structures, their entrances hidden behind wild overgrowth and dense vegetation. Bamboo trees lined the river that flowed behind our house, and tall grasses stretched endlessly, giving the area an untamed, almost menacing feel. At night, the unease grew more profound. From the safety of our home, we could occasionally see flickering lights and detect movement in the shadows of the abandoned buildings. None of us dared to venture out or ask who might be lurking there. Speculation filled the silence. Were they illegal drug users, or perhaps the notorious armed robbers who were the focus of constant police manhunts? At the time, the city was gripped by a wave of house robberies, particularly in more populated areas. Life in the government quarters was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. The silence of the day was pierced by the unseen, while the nights carried the weight of the unknown. As children, my brother and I could feel the tension, even though much of it was unspoken. It was a place of mystery, fear, and a peculiar sense of adventure all rolled into one. Life at house number 16 was as surreal as it was unsettling. The government-reserved quarters were located along a bypass, surrounded by open wilderness and a lonely ring road that wound through the expanse like a forgotten trail. The road was eerily silent most of the day, with only the occasional vehicle or passerby to remind us we were not completely isolated. The quarters themselves were vast, with clusters of abandoned, half-finished buildings consumed by tall grasses and creeping vegetation. On the far side of the road, towering mountains loomed. They were not just mountains, they seemed alive, almost sentient. By day, they stood imposingly in the distance, their jagged peaks softened by the hazy sunlight. But by night, they seemed to creep closer, inching toward the houses as if drawn by some unseen force. My young mind couldn't comprehend the phenomenon, but each night I swore they were nearer. By morning, they'd retreat to their original position, as if mocking us for ever doubting their immobility. One of the most haunting elements of our strange new life was the mysterious woman. She appeared only at dusk, always in the same spot near the quarters on one of the smaller mountains, but never close enough for a proper identification. Dressed in a flowing white gown with a striking red cloth tied around her waist, she was a sight impossible to ignore. Her hair was long and wild, cascading down her face and obscuring her features entirely. She would circle a large local African pot, which sat boiling over an open fire, steam hissing into the cool night air. As she ran around the pot, her voice would ring out, crying, "Help! Help! Help!" The word echoed in the stillness, carrying an otherworldly resonance that sent shivers through us. No one dared approach her, and we could only watch from the safety of our home, hearts pounding. Who was she? What was in the pot? And why did she call for help when no one dared to answer? Our nights at house number 16 were an uneasy blend of fear and curiosity. The combination of the creeping mountains, the shadowy figures in the abandoned buildings, and the woman with her boiling pot made it feel as though we had stepped into a world between reality and the supernatural. We never spoke of these things openly during the day, but as night fell, they became impossible to ignore. It was a place where the mundane and the mystical collided, a childhood home unlike any other, where the walls of house number 16 held secrets we could never quite unravel.